Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are tonight's entertainment.
Citizens of Gotham City, this is the Joker. Particularly addressing Batman wherever you are. Don't give a hoot for the hobnailed, but look for a bow and a bobtailed.
Jack is dead, my friend. You can call me Joker. And as you can see, I'm a lot happier.
And I thought my jokes were bad.
Hi, sweetie.
Oh, Harley, you're the sweetest tool in my box.
Puddin'.
When you bring me out, can you introduce me as Joker?
And here we go. Let's put a smile on that face.
Welcome to the Moose Movie Review Episode II, Joker and the Men Who Played the Madmen. I am the Moose Cuckoo Cuckoo, as always. Thank you for joining me on Episode 2 here. Today with me I do have a guest, Captain M.
Hello there.
Welcome aboard, MMR. Glad to have you aboard for this. We are live on Spreaker. You can also find us on Twitter as well at p3podcastnetwork.com and Spotify as well. You can also contact me on Twitter at Moose Movie Review. That's all one word, all spelled out. And upcoming soon, the new mailbag section. You can email me questions, concerns, or comments at Moose Movie Review, all together, all spelled out, at gmail.com. So we're going to dig right into the new DC thriller that has hit theaters, the highest rated R film of all time now, Joker. Little synopsis about the film here. In 1981, Gotham City, Arthur Fleck, played by one Joaquin Phoenix, is a mentally troubled comedian and is disregarded and mistreated by society. And also, with part of his mental health issues, involves uncontrollable laughter. Arthur has even worse times than most, and over time these issues bear down on him, shaping his actions, shaping the man who he becomes. He then embarks on a downward spiral of revolution and bloody crime. The path brings him face to face with his alter ego, Joker. Now, Matt, you saw the film as well. This is our third new origin story, I should say, by DC, going in the R-rated direction, and I really enjoyed it.
One thing I have to say is I love the fact that this movie did not treat mental illness as a movie trope.
No.
Yes, the character is disturbed. This is definitely, even though it's a comic book movie, it's along the same lines of Deadpool, but for completely different reasons.
Absolutely.
This is for adults. This throws you into basically a real world, but, you know, heavily emphasized with comic book features.
Absolutely, I totally agree. I like the feel. I like the grit of the film. Had a really good pace, throughout. Everything, followed to one another. Now, one of the things I saw recently too, there's a lot of theory out there now with the ending and if it was real or not. Have you seen that?
Yes, I have. And one of the things, too, is if you watched, and we're going to get into the different Jokers a little later on.
Yep.
If you watch the Batman animated adventures, one of the best things about the Joker, even with his origin, is the thought there can be multiple options. It could be like a multiple choice that you can choose from. And it's very hard to put that in physical media, in live action, for a cartoon, for a comic book. You can do that. You can really distort things. But for what this movie was going for, it found a way to do that tastefully in the medium without holding your audience's hand.
Yeah.
And that was great.
I like that too. I like the fact you associate a lot with Arthur throughout the film and his struggles and trying to get back into being a normal member of society. And like you mentioned too, the whole thing with not treating his mental illness as a trope to the movie itself, actually treating it as, this is a major plot point. This is going to be something that's going to carry from scene to scene to scene throughout the whole film. I loved how he looked. I like they did very good with his costume design, kind of that old school 80s feel. And I enjoyed it too for the plot and how he himself didn't really feel like he contributed to it. He just was just there, and it all just kind of started happening around him for what he decided to do.
And that's one of the big things too. When you watch movies with Batman and the Joker clearly, because he got his own movie in the first place, is one of those well-known villains. One of those villains that you love to hate. Mm-hmm. You have characters like Loki, like Thanos, where people can somewhat understand their motives, but at the same time, they know they're the villain. Mm-hmm. In this movie, you felt sad for Arthur. You saw the entire spotlight on him. During the film, you knew some of the things that he was doing was wrong, but at the same time,
you're cheering him on. You're like, yeah, stand up for yourself.
Yeah, and you can understand why he's doing it.
Yeah.
It wasn't, and this is odd saying for a positive Joker review, it wasn't all chaos. You saw where his mind was going, where things were coming from, and that was fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. It was just, I think, because it was just so different from anything else you've seen, and finally kind of, I know it's not a true origin story because there is no origin to the Joker. Joker was obviously the first villain in Batman in Detective Comics. He was the first one that he faced, and he always had that. He really was his Dr. Moriarty. He always stood out, always antagonized Batman, and throughout the years, being a comic fan of some of the stuff that he's done to Batman, to Robin. Spoiler alert! For those who don't know, he had killed one of his Robins in cold blood with a pipe wrench.
Yes,
but came back. But that's a story for another day. But I loved it a lot. I would definitely go see it again in the theater. It takes a lot for me to go to a movie more than once in a theater, but I would definitely go and rewatch this film again in there. And that's why I'm going to give the Joker 5 maniacal laughters out of 5.
And for me, I definitely have to give it 5 pinstripe suits out of 5.
All right. So we're going to take a little break here. Coming up next, we're going to go into Hot Topic, new segment here. We're going to talk about the Joker and the men who have played the Madmen over the years.
Good evening.
Hey, Wisconsin listeners. Do you want to own the movies and games that we talk about here on the P3 Podcast Network?
Then stop on down at your local Mojo's Electronics in Anago, Shawano, Oshkosh, and Green Bay, Wisconsin. And they will do their best to get you any game or movie that you're looking for.
That's Mojo's Electronics, exclusive friends of the P3 Podcast Network.
Can I come out now?
Fine. Hey, this is Bob O.
And this is Umsy.
And here's an update for the coming month's broadcast on the P3 Podcast Network.
As always, you can look forward to us trying to be funny each week on Around the Nerd.
Classic reviews will continue once again, this time focusing on classic cartoons from our childhood and teen years, including Sailor Moon's English dub, as well as Yu-Gi-Oh!, Digimon, Pokemon, up to Ash's Adventures in the Hoenn region, and much, much more.
As the 13th Doctor's second season gets closer and closer, the mysterious M and Bobo will actually try to finish what they started and continue the Doctor Who review, but we all know they won't.
Hey!
What?
Whatever. Finally, starting in November, the P3 team plans to bring to you a whole new experience from our network. I will be running a group of intrepid adventurers through a daunting campaign in the 3.5 Dungeons & Dragons world of Eberron. And that's what you have to look forward to this month and next on the P3 Podcast Network.
And now, back to the show.
And we're back. Thank you, Mojo Gaming, for supporting the P3 Podcast Network and MMR as well. Today's hot topic, the men who have played the Madmen. Now, on this list, I will admit there are some that I have not seen, but for the vast majority, I have seen them. So we're just going to start right at the beginning. In the original Batman series, starring one Adam West, Godspeed, Adam. We'll see you on the other side, is one original Cesar Romero.
Now, as far as this Joker and this Batman go, I have to admit I've only seen limited exposure to this. This was my father's Batman when he was a kid, and what I have seen is absolutely fantastic for what it is. This was before Tim Burton's Batman. This was when people heavily thought comic books were for kids. And if you go into any episode of the show reflecting that fact, you're going to have a fun time. He is over the top. He is ridiculous. When you think of a cartoon brought to life, Cesar Romero delivers that to a T.
I have to agree with you. He jumped head first into the role, made it his own. He had a very iconic laugh to go with it. In his biography, West had actually said he brought an enormous amount of energy to the role, and he didn't know how he did it. And I have to agree with that, because he just was so off the wall. And like you said, bringing a comic book to life, it felt like you were watching the comic unfold on screen every week. Now, there wasn't a whole lot to the original Batman series. It only ran for 2 years, but some of the most iconic people have come out of that. You had Cesar Romero as Joker. You had Eartha Kitt, who was one of the original Catwoman, even in there. And a lot of people don't realize that she was a villain in the film. But a lot of the shows are great. I think the most famous one with Romero is where he invaded the opera of the Sad Clown, Pagliacci, I think it's called. And then he did the famous taking off his mask and did the laugh, and that's actually where we'll get to it. Heath Ledger in the beginning of Dark Knight, when he takes off his mask against the banker, that's where he got that from originally, was from that episode. Coming up next is, of course, the Tim Burton classic Batman from 1989, and starring one of the greatest actors of all time, Jack Nicklaus, and again, who definitely made this role his own. He took himself as kind of like basically from The Shining. I really thought he kind of played a lot of that portion of himself and brought that into the role as Joker. And also, again, it was very much like the comic brought to life, because his goons had the purple windbreakers with the original Joker logo on it. He even had a helicopter with the Joker logo on it.
And you see, for me, the first introduction to this movie, I had to be 10. And because my father was on the road a lot doing truck driving, my mother would show me all her favorite movies. Now, those would include Terminator 1, Terminator 2, anything Arnold Schwarzenegger, anything with bad, stupid puns. And then there was the Batman. And I loved this movie. There were two scenes that, as a kid, stuck out to me the most. One of which was... they're actually the same scene where the Joker reaches out his hand to shake someone's hand, and then he has the killer joy buzzer.
Yeah.
And he just... the guy who's shaking his hand turns into a skeleton right in front. And that was traumatizing, but as a kid, that was cool.
That was funny. One of my favorite ones was when Batman is fighting him and he gives him the laughing jaw comes out and it's chattering on the ground. There's also a lot of great iconic movie lines in the movie. Of course, you got Ever Dance with the Devil in the Pale Moonlight. When he comes back basically from the dead, Jack is dead, and you can call me Joker.
And that brings up my other favorite part of the mafia meeting scene is when he looks like normal Jack, and he takes the rag, and I'm rewatching it like I did recently. You can tell there's a little bit of clumsiness to it, but at the time, he takes his rag and he dabs away the makeup, revealing his white face. And as a kid, that was the coolest thing because it really shows this guy's not normal anymore.
Yeah, that's good when he goes and meets the doctor, gets the reconstruction, laughs maniacally as only he can do, and probably for a lot of kids, I'm guessing you're probably a little younger than I am. I grew up watching that too, so it definitely lasts an impression. Now, coming into the next big series, which has, I think, impacted a lot of 90s babies, the Batman animated series, with Mark Hamill. And our producer here is nearly spazzing out just hearing it. It's, when he came in, he's like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if people can accept Luke Skywalker as the villain as being the Joker.
And one thing we really kind of have to emphasize is people nowadays, the cartoon style is still amazing, and sometimes, like some of the frames, because it was hand-drawn back then, sometimes it's a little rougher to get used to the style. However, that being said, back at the time where this was coming out, this was during Joel Schumacher's run for the Batman movies, and it was kind of going back to that thought of comic book movies are for kids, and then you had Batman the Animated Series, and you saw things like the Joker domestically abusing Harley Quinn. You saw episodes where characters would die or would come very close to it at the time where Hollywood was putting out these movies that are bright, colorful, ice skating men following around Batman. This cartoon took things seriously, and you could see that most foremost in Mark Hamill's performance of the Joker.
And I liked how Mark really made it his own, and each episode was totally different. Like, I watched something recently, and he had an interview and was talking about it. He did a lot of Vin Rames from Invisible Man. Crazy? I'll show you who's crazy. And he just really, like you said, they showed the true side of the Joker, even though sometimes he was loving, not all the time. But also, too, for the times, a lot of the action or little miscues, like you saw Harley and Poison Ivy living together, and then she walks out just wearing a shirt. You don't see that anymore. That's something that's gone. That doesn't happen anymore in really any cartoon made for a kid. But, as us kids, we didn't think anything of it.
You don't think twice about that. One last thing, at least for me, before we move on to the next one. Because of Mark Hamill's performance, and while I personally have mixed thoughts on the movie, the first time DC, when they were making their animated movies straight to DVD, that they were doing a rated R film was with The Killing Joke. And in that, Mark Hamill was chosen for basically the most adult and disturbing roles and the most disturbing things the Joker has done to that point.
I like The Killing Joke a lot. That was a good animated film. I love the graphic novel too. I like the fact that they did get the original actors, Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill, and all three, and those two, of course, did the Batman games that came out, Arkham Asylum, Arkham Knight, and did he do the third one or not? I think
he did.
I can't remember if Mark did the third one. I know he did the first two.
He did the third in the canonical. He did not do Batman Arkham Origins.
Okay. I knew it was one of them. Coming up next is 2004's Just the Batman. Keith Michael Richardson played the Joker in this one. He also played Lex Luger in a lot of the DC stuff as well. I have not seen this film, so I will admit that I have no bearing on him as Joker voice.
Oh, the Batman. Okay. I have faded memories, to put simply. This was kind of the cartoon where the DC cartoon universe, this included things like Superman the Animated Series, Batman, Justice League Unlimited. This is the show that came out right after they disbanded that.
Okay.
And while it certainly wasn't bad, I'd have to say it was more mundane. The Joker, however, remained crazy, but they kind of upped him to more of a cartoon status. There was less realism. It wasn't bad. It was just more or less for what the show was. He played his part perfectly.
Coming in 2008, I've seen this, the Batman the Brave and the Bold. Jeff Bennett played the Joker in that one. Brave and the Bold was, again, something totally different, totally different from the time. It was kind of more of that 60s style feel, very campy. He did okay.
I'd have to say that Brave and the Bold was definitely aimed for a younger audience.
Absolutely.
One thing I did like about the show, even though I was admittedly at the time a little too old for their demographic, is they introduced a lot of people. They went to the bottom of the barrel and they mixed things up. They brought you DC characters. Even hardcore fans had to blink for a second. Oh yeah, that was a thing. But they had the characters interact because they had the little bit of freedom, because they knew this was for kids. You would have the Joker interacting with basically someone from the D-list of Green Arrow's rogues. And for what the show was, that was its strength, was seeing so many different people across this universe being able to react to each other.
Absolutely, I agree. The next one we have Lego Batman, the video game. Now, the first one was not voice animated like the original, a lot of the other Lego games was. But in the second iterations, they did get voice actors. Steve Blum, a veteran of voice acting, most probably commonly known as Spike from from Cowboy Bebop, and Sub-Zero for the Mortal Kombat. The Lego movies are fun. They're campy. They're enjoyable. The voice acting for them all have been really well, and it was really interesting to hear Steve play the Joker. I was really hoping when they did the Lego Batman movie that he would do it again, but unfortunately that didn't happen.
For a little bit of clarification, Lego, for their video games and their home release only movies, this is what we're talking about, not the big budget ones that you've seen in theaters.
Yeah, good clarification there. And of course, now we come to one of the most iconic actors besides Mark Hamill, and probably I would say Cesar Romero and Jack Nicholson, Heath Ledger, and The Dark Knight. I could dedicate a whole episode just to this film and just to his acting. At the time, it was very controversial. Internet was just slamming. He can't be the Joker. He can't do it. He can't do it. Well, you know what? He did. And we have now the reason for the hot topic this week. Who is the greatest Joker in the world? And it killed him. For lack of better, actually, this film did not kill him, producer. It was the film afterwards that killed him.
And this is something kind of being brought up, and I am not getting off topic. And one of the things that's kind of being talked about now is the Joker curse.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of the thought of these amazing actors, these amazing people, really getting into the role to the point where it takes a toll on them.
Yeah.
And with Heath Ledger's performance, it was fantastic. When he came on screen, it wasn't just the naysayers, it was the people who had no idea what to expect when coming into this movie.
Absolutely.
Because, like we were saying before, with Batman the Animated Series, for about the span of 5 to 10 years, comic book movies had been taken back to the thought of, this is for kids. And when you had Batman Begins, it was a good start. It was definitely a good running start towards a more grounded and a more realistic look at comic book movies. And Heath Ledger's Joker cemented that for not only the franchise, but also helped really push to the movies we have now.
The other thing that I have to say is it's nothing against other people that played Joker, but it's left this bar that is now just seeming that no one can come back over as far as the acting goes. And I know a lot of people, really put themselves in the role of their character and what they do. So, like I said, I can just talk about this for an entire hour. Definitely, Heath got the Oscar for this. One of the things that I always wondered, did he get it because he died, or did he get it because of that acting? And I know the answer, because the Oscars are political. Spoiler alert: he got it because he died. But in fact, he really should have gotten it because he played it so well. And the other thing I wanted to touch on, you said, with Batman Begins, these three movies, Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, and The Dark Knight Rises, were based upon Frank Miller's series, The Dark Knight. But we actually did finally get a version of that, which we'll cover later. Coming up next is John DiMaggio. For those who don't know him, he plays Bender the robot. He played the Joker in Batman Under the Red Hood. I did not see enough of this film. I have heard clips of him playing it. It basically revolves around, again, that story of, at the time, Jason Todd, the boy wonder who was brutally murdered.
And this is where I would have to take in, because I own this film and I watch it about once a year. Now, upon seeing the film, I have to say, at first it was more or less underwhelming for me, because when I heard of Jason Todd's death in the comics, it was built up because what had ended up happening at the time, fans did not like him. So DC Comics just said, you know what? We're going to put up a poll. If you guys
I remember
want
writing
to,
in for it.
you can make it if he lives or dies. When they killed him, fans were horrified, because even for comics at the time, it was such a brutal way, and it was at the hands of the Joker.
I have the comic of where he is murdered. It's very graphic.
And at the end of this film, and this is getting into spoiler territory, which we will not do for the main movie we are reviewing.
But this one we can.
Yes. There is a scene where Batman and Jason are talking in front of the Joker, and even though Jason takes off his helmet, he's clearly got the Robin mask on, so identities aren't worried about. And he has this talk in front of the Joker saying, I get it, you don't kill. You don't kill the Penguin. I'm not talking about the Penguin. I'm not talking about Poison Ivy. Why not him? And you feel it in your gut as he is pleading, saying, I forgive you for what you did, for what you couldn't do. What I cannot forgive you for is not killing him. And there's a bomb in the room. and there's this beautifully haunting scene where Jason just wants everyone to die. He doesn't care just so long as the Joker dies. And Batman says to him, if you die, if I die, that's not going to save this. And the Joker comes out, holds them, trying to get them to stay, and says, nobody wins but me. It's the thought of him, even if he dies, this is his final act, tearing the Bat apart. And it is beautifully haunting.
I'll have to check that out. It sounds good. I haven't seen the full thing. I've read the graphic novel of it. I've read the story of it. So I'm familiar with that. Coming into 2011, short-lived show, Young Justice. One Brent Spiner played the Joker. Kudos to him for doing something different. Did not see this show. I don't know about you.
Sadly, at the time, I did not. I had a friend who watched it and loved it, and to her dying breath will defend every second of this show.
That's good to hear. Michael Emerson played the old Joker, forced Batman out of retirement in 2012's Batman: The Dark Knight Returns. I love Michael Emerson. He was in Lost. He played a bit part in the original Saw movie, and he was also on Person of Interest. He plays such a unique, spooky-looking dude. 'Cause he looks kind of creepy. And then he plays the Joker, and it is fucking phenomenal. Pardon my language.
No, this is my favorite Batman movie of all time, and that does include the live actions. Both part 1, where Batman's getting back into things, and part 2, where you see Batman versus the Joker for the final time.
Mm-hmm.
And talking about phenomenal speeches, this has my favorite Batman-Joker interaction. Once again, spoilers for this movie. It's basically the Joker death scene, where you have Batman fighting off against him. And the best part is, Joker was comatose with Batman retiring. He lived off of Batman, and him coming back into the scene is what brought him back to life.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a scene where Batman and him are in the iconic Tunnel of Love.
Now,
take that as you will, shippers.
That scene is just... I see why they did it. You know, it was in the comic, but it kind of does. It plays out their relationship between one another.
The Joker takes out a blade. And as they're fighting, it's gruesome, it's visceral, and you hear this grizzled old Batman, all the people I've murdered by letting you live. And the Joker plays it off, I never counted. And Batman retorts, I did. And my favorite Joker line, he takes the knife, he stabs it into Batman's stomach, and I love you for it.
Mm-hmm. I agree, this is probably not my favorite film like yours, but it's up there for me. Dark Knight still kind of is that mantle for me.
Oh, more than fine.
I would have to say, though, this was probably number 2, because I like the fact that it followed the comic, the Dark Knight Returns comic, more than the live-action one. Coming in, again, we have Troy Baker, who took over the reins from Mark Hamill, which we were talking about, who played in Marvel, or he plays the Joker in Arkham Origins. He made it his own, and I will give him all the kudos in the world for making it his own. I did not play Arkham Origins as much as I played the other ones in the franchise, but that was just me. Coming in now, we have, some say, the worst Joker, Jared Leto, coming in at 2016. Now, here's my thought. I did not think he was that bad of a Joker, because he was playing like every other one of these men that we've talked about. He played his own Joker.
And the thing for me, which I feel... I have mixed feelings about the actor myself. I will never hate a person, and I don't even come close to anything of that emotion. But I do feel bad for him in a way, because he had one movie. He had one movie with barely any speaking lines, and so many people had such a visceral reaction to, quite frankly, something that was a little too underwhelming, in my opinion, to get angry about.
Okay. No, and our producer has an interesting opinion on this one as well. What do you got, Bobo?
So, okay. Jared Leto, he has his issues as Joker, okay? And most of his issues as Joker are because you have purists who are begging for the Joker that doesn't give two flying craps about Harley. But here's the thing. The Joker does care about Harley in one way and one way only. He's the only one who gets to use her.
Exactly. She is a possession to him. And
that's why Jared Leto was a good Joker.
I have to agree with you, Bobo, and I also have to agree with you, Captain M. They took so much out of the original film from him that he did not get a chance. And I felt in the final version of Suicide Squad, they just didn't give him that chance to say, okay, here's the ball, run with it, here you go. For the scenes he had, I liked them because, like Bob always said, he treated Harley as his possession, and the scenes that were with her and him and their interactions with one another were really good. And the fact that he did go and try to get her.
And the thing you keep saying is all these different people put a different spin on it. One thing the Joker always has to have for him is this unnerving feeling. Mm-hmm. And for me, while it's definitely not the same type of brand of unnerving as Jack Nicholson, Heath Ledger, or in the movie we're officially reviewing, Joaquin Phoenix, you feel unnerved by him, especially during the strip club scene where Harley's spinning around the pole and you see Joker sitting there and there's no laugh, there's no smile. You're like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen, but it's bad.
Just his eyes.
And by no means does that mean that Suicide Squad is a good movie, because they just put too much into the visuals for it, and that's where I had the biggest problem.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, Jared Leto was perfect for that for that version. For that version of Joker. Okay, I'm done. I'll go back to producing.
Lego Batman movie coming in. Zach Galifianakis played Joker in this.
Speaking of Tunnel of Love.
Oh, God. I love the Lego games, and I love the Lego movies. They're so much fun. They're cheesy. They're campy. I like the Lego Batman movie. I know a lot of people didn't.
I have to say, he's Batman's boyfriend.
He really is.
There's no other way to put this.
No, I agree. He really
is Batman's jealous ass boyfriend.
That scene when he tells him, I don't care, and just the look of the sad puppy dog eyes of the Joker,
and he gets so much emotion for what's supposed to be a piece of plastic.
Yeah, it's just, I love it. I love it. And of course, our latest Joker, Joaquin Phoenix.
Oh yeah, we talked about this in the beginning. He is so unnerving. And one thing I do have to let people know that it's okay in this movie, they hold you hostage in some scenes. Because, last quick thing I'm going to put in, they have parts of that movie where you laugh. And you don't feel comfortable doing it. Like I said, they hold you hostage where there is nothing you can do but laugh. It is such a messed up part anytime these scenes come up, but they pulled something on you where you have to do it. Otherwise, it's going to be more painful not to.
I have to agree. He played it well. Joaquin, you've made it your own, and I hope to see you more as the Joker. Quick thoughts. My top 3 Jokers are probably going to be in this order. Heath Ledger, Joaquin Phoenix, and Mark Hamill.
For me, a little bit of decisive, but don't have time to talk about it. Joaquin Phoenix, Mark Hamill and Heath Ledger.
Absolutely. I think that that's probably the top three for a lot of people. Where they rank them is going to be different for each one. Tell us your thoughts. Please write into the Moose Movie Review at gmail.com. Tell us your thoughts and opinions on Joker. Who do you like as Joker? Who else would take this mantle of the Madman?
And if you are on YouTube, please leave a comment. We do read and we will respond.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
You can also leave comments on Spreaker.com, and make sure you can listen to us on iHeartRadio as well as Spotify and shit.
One quick thing. Next week we will have episode 3, Maleficent and the Mistress of Darkness, and how she's become Disney's greatest villain.
Dear friends, today is the day the clown cried.
You want to know how I got these scars?
What do we have here?
What are you gonna do? You gonna kill me, Mr. J?
What?
Oh, I'm not gonna kill you. I'm just gonna hurt you. Really, really bad.
Righty-o! Tell me something, my friend. You ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight? What? I always ask that of all my prey. I just like the sound of it.
Why so serious? Let's put a smile on that face. And why so serious?
Without Batman, crime has no punchline.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.